From the View My Sports studios, it's The Breakdown with your hosts, Roger Tillis and Chuck Olesker. Today's guest on The Breakdown, he's a high school championship coach and director of Stanton Riverbank Rowing in Jacksonville, Florida. Welcome, Coach Ted Riedeburg. Hi, welcome to The Breakdown. I'm Roger Tillis, your host, and joining me is Chuck Olesker, and today's special guest is very special. We have head rowing coach Ted Riedeburg with us today, joining us on the set of The Breakdown. Ted, how you doing today?
Good, Roger. How are you doing? Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Now, I have to ask you, you know, it's funny, we've talked to other coaches from other sports, and we get into, you know, the team sense and, you know, the size of the team, and like our basketball coach that we had on the last show, he talked about, you know, the family attitude. You know, that to really bring the team together, and,
Sure.
and but you're talking about a group of athletes that have to function in their sport as a team. Now, I think a lot of people, they think rowing, well, you know, you've got the folks in the boat, and as long as they're pulling together, that's pretty much all that matters. I happen to know firsthand, because you had me out at one of your practices, that team unity is never more important than in the sport of rowing. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Well, absolutely. Well, one thing that's beautiful about the sport of rowing is there's all kinds of different boat classifications, so kids can row in different categories, and there's single sculls, so there'd be just one person rowing, double sculls, 2 people, and then 4 and 8-man shells.
And when you say categories, you mean levels of expertise, or
Right. Well, they're not only the different boat sizes and classes, but also the level of their expertise in the sport. So you have freshman categories, lightweight, varsity, junior varsity, things like that. So if you have a large team, you can have 80, 100 kids on the team, and all of them are going to row and have potential to medal at any given regatta. So that's also great. You know?
Oh, that's outstanding.
But in addition to that, you know, it is a very much team-oriented sport, not only in just the individual boats, but as a whole, because you go to these races and you're kind of competing with all the other programs for points. And so each boat category gets you a certain amount of point value.
Nice.
But yeah, I'd say that rowing in a team boat like an 8 is unlike any other thing that you could imagine as far as team sports concerned, because you really have to be identical with everybody else in the crew. You have to have the same mindset. You have to have the same work ethic. You're only as strong as the weakest person in the boat.
That makes sense.
And you all have to be positive and really just go after it. And even if you're the boat that's in last place, you can never give up. And we actually had a great example of that over states this past weekend. We had a junior 8 that just kept muscling through it, and they improved every race. They got faster every race. So it was just amazing that they had that kind of push, even though they were losing. You know, so it was great.
Now the team unity aspect, and again, just to kind of beat that point in a little bit, it extends well beyond being in the boat and pulling together. I mean, I know that, again, I use the example of the practice that I was at. I mean, the kids stretching, the kids, you know, during the meeting, the kids running, the way that the kids have to act in unity to get the, you know, the shell off the shelf and into the, I mean,
That's right.
Every step. I mean, where does it start drumming that kind of mentality into your athletes?
Well, it's a very unique sport, and it's something where kids come down and they don't know what to expect. I mean, it's not something that you can just pick up in your backyard and say, "Hey, guys, come on over, let's row."
Sure.
Right. And so everyone comes down there not knowing anything and not knowing what to expect. And really that atmosphere is a product of the coaches, the coaching staff, and the kids that are on the team. So if a kid walks in there and he's not expecting what's going on, he sees the team is working together in every little thing, like making sure all the equipment's ready at the beginning of practice. And there is a lot. There's a lot of equipment to take care of. There's the coaches' launches to take care of. There are the boats, obviously, the kids row in, the oars, everything that they have to do, wash the boats down when they're done, put all the equipment away before they go, all the stretching, like you said, all that stuff, the calisthenics that we do, everything's as a group. Even though they're broken into smaller teams when they practice, there's still that big teamwork aspect. And I think that instills a lot of great qualities in the kids.
Excellent.
See that sort of thing. Yeah.
Excellent. You know, it's funny. For those of you that don't know, now the coaches, when they're at practice and they're out on the water, they're not out like in a little 1 or 2 man shell. They're out in a motorboat. I got to hang out at practice, and when they said we were going to put a boat in the water, of course I was terrified until I saw it was a nice tin boat with a kicker on it, and we got to motor back and forth and follow the boat. So that was, I guess that's the luxury you have to get. And again, for those of you that don't know, with rowing, I mean, you could have 4, 5, 6, 7 boats out on the water at the same time during practice. The coaches are literally bouncing from boat to boat, watching. I mean, it is one of the most involved athletic practices that I've ever got to witness. And I mean, if you ever get an opportunity as a parent, if you're allowed to, please go and take a look and watch how that practice is conducted. And I think you'll be very, very delighted with the experience for your student athlete. That's for certain.
Yeah, certainly we run into some challenges out there in the river because
imagine so.
If I'm a football coach, I know everybody's going to be on that football field pretty much or in the weight room. But out there, you can get one crew that's a little faster than the other. And suddenly you're, obviously we have rules. We have the kids say if you get this far away, you need to stop. So we keep you all an eyeball on everybody.
Good.
But yeah, we have to kind of divide up the coaches into skill level so that they're rowing with the same skill level groups so they don't get spread out. And you can coach everybody a lot easier that way too.
Sure, sure.
Okay.
Now, when did you yourself, and I was reading your bio and I was catching a lot, I mean, good grief. I mean, it was too long for me to really get into the details. I mean, really, you've got quite a history as far as rowing. Now, when did you first get into rowing, though? Because you didn't row in college, correct?
I didn't.
Which floored me because, honestly, I would have thought that you were an Olympic rower. I mean, with your knowledge, not just
I could have been maybe if I kept going.
Well, not just the knowledge of the sport, but the training aspect and the fitness aspects, which I know that you're very, very involved in. I mean, so how? Why rowing? Obviously, you weren't going to play the saxophone in a band, so why rowing?
I tried.
Yeah, I saw that. I'm not kidding. I saw that in the bio as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, I think that I started rowing mostly the same way everybody starts rowing, and that's just a referral. I had a friend of mine in school, my freshman year in high school. He said, "Hey, Ted, you need to try this. It's really cool." At the time, that sport was only a spring sport. It's since gotten a lot bigger now, and it's a full season sort of thing. But I was playing soccer in the spring, or in the fall rather. So in the spring, I had nothing going on, and he said, "You should come try this." I said, okay, and I fell in love with it right away. It was unlike anything I'd ever seen before. I was up in Poughkeepsie, New York, so we were rowing on the Hudson River.
Oh, wow.
Nice.
And we took our bus down to Marist College campus, was where the boathouse was, and just descending down toward the river and seeing this body of water in front of you. You have to conquer that body of water, and the river there, the Hudson River, is a lot like the St. John's. It's tidal. It gets really, really wavy at times, depending on where the winds are going and stuff.
Sure.
And I don't know, once you get in the boat and you start rowing and you feel the water and you feel the way the oar moves through the water and all this other stuff, I mean, it's just like, it gives me chills talking about it today because it's just like unlike anything you've ever felt before. And more often than not, kids come down to try the sport and they're hooked right away.
So it's not a hate it or love it. I mean, you get in and it's something that typically will draw you. What's the one part for the kids that go out and give it a shot, and that don't like it? What is it? The physicality aspect?
Sometimes I think it's just they feel it takes a lot of energy to row. I mean, it's a sport that requires a tremendous amount of training to do well. And some kids, I'm sorry to say, are just lazy. So they come out and they realize all the work that they're going to have to do. And that's usually the turnoff. But that's a very small percentage. I mean, I'd say that 10 kids come down, more likely than not, 9 of them are going to stay.
Nice.
Wow.
That's a great percentage. Yeah. I mean, and you see that in all sports. I mean, you're going to the excitement might be there at the beginning, but then when the reality hits in. But for a coach, especially a coach, coaching at a high level such as yourself, for the process to weed out the weak, so to speak, I mean, that's okay. That makes your job a little easier.
And what's nice about our sport too is it's not a cut sport. So
well, like you said, you have all those
right,
different
because we have
levels.
so many categories. I mean, there are teams out there, like there's a crew in Orlando, Winter Park High School, which I'm sure you've heard of. It's a huge high school.
Sure.
Had a very successful rowing program for many, many years. It's one of the oldest in the state. And they actually cut down to 5/8 on both sides.
Really?
When they have that many kids.
Well, I guess, yeah. I guess that makes sense. I mean, now, and it's funny you talk about South Florida, Central Florida. Now, we don't, we have the St. Johns River, obviously, and there's certain lakes and different setups. But and I didn't realize this until just a couple of years ago. They actually have rowing venues, man-made. The long stretches of water. It's like a gigantic, Olympic pool, only a lot bigger.
Right.
And it's designed strictly for the rowing. I mean, when did that start?
Well, primarily rowing has been taking place for a long time just on normal bodies of water found all over the United States, lakes, ponds, rivers, bays. But, to get a fair course, making these race courses is really the way to go. And if you see any of the recent Olympics,
Right.
I think in Beijing, I think they actually made that whole thing from scratch.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But actually, what's really cool in Florida right now is in Sarasota, where our state championships are being held. They actually are converting this area into a FISA grade rowing course. They're hoping to get the World Championships here in 2017. I think they're shooting for.
Outstanding.
And they are making it's already a fully buoyed up to 8 lanes, which they actually used 8 lanes this past weekend, which was the first time they had done that.
Wow.
2,000-meter course.
Yeah.
And it's really amazing. Once they're done with the thing, it's going to be top notch. I mean, it's going to be something you want to go check out because it's pretty cool that it's actually here in Florida.
That's exciting.
And the fact that it's in your backyard, I mean, it's not too shabby to be able to go down and compete in such a complex.
No,
Exactly.
it's great for the kids. Love it.
Yeah.
You should have seen them. We were on the bus pulling in, and there were a bunch of kids that it was their first year and they hadn't been there before. And as we were pulling in and going over the bridge, over the course, they're all like looking out the window like, wow. Because I used to row on the Ortega River here, and that's, you can't see anything if you're a spectator until the last 10 strokes.
Well, it'd be like a football team getting to go to a professional stadium to play their game. I mean, it's just so they're in awe. Well, I want to get into sort of switch gears and get into the aspects from a recruiting collegiate standpoint.
Sure.
Because most people, and I was the same way at the very beginning, because of the movies that I've seen, Oxford Blues and whatnot, I always associated rowing with the Ivy League.
Yeah.
And that seems to be, in my opinion, a myth. Most people think, rowing that's an Ivy League sport. That's that's for the Ivy Leagues, and I don't want to go to an Ivy League school. I'm not smart enough. Whatever the reason being.
Right.
So a lot of people kind of just they write off the sport because that's what they associate it with. Obviously, it's a myth. There are many colleges. Expand on that for me, if you don't mind, Coach.
Well, I mean, the myth started because if you think way back, I think it was 1850 something, I can't remember, 52, was the first intercollegiate competition, was between Yale and Harvard in a rowing race.
I think that's when Chuck was in college.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's where it all started, and that was the first intercollegiate match of any kind. And it's what's funny about that too is a lot of people think rowing's a new sport. It's really not. It's one of the oldest sports in college. And it really has boomed. I mean, at first it was a lot of Ivy League schools had it. And the main reason is it's an expensive sport, as far as getting equipment and all that sort of thing. But nowadays they're actually thinking more on the lines of, well, actually rowing is a lot less expensive than funding a football team or something like that.
Sure. Well, and not just for the school and the program, but for the individuals and the parents.
That's right.
I mean, I have a kid that's going to row. What does he need, or she need?
Nothing.
Pair of shorts and a T-shirt.
Shorts. Yeah.
Nothing really.
I mean, so and it's not like the boats are being replaced every year because like other gear. I mean, those things. What's the life expectancy of a boat? Of a shell during for a high school program. I mean, how long could you hold on to a boat? Do you think?
Nowadays, back in the day, they were made of wood. But now
those are heavy.
Oh yeah, they were. Wow. I rode in a couple of those. Now they're all carbon,
Mm-hmm.
composite material, and very light, a lot lighter weight, but
Sure.
way more durable.
Mm-hmm.
And a brand new 8 can run you about $32,000.
That's what I thought. Right.
And for the top of the line. But it'll last you 10, 20 years if you keep care of it. It's like a car.
Sure.
So in that aspect, you do the major funding to start the program, and then you're good. I mean, it's not like having to send. You don't have to send people like basketball team. Think how many times they have to travel.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Right.
That's a big expense.
Mm-hmm.
The rowers, they compete on the weekends mostly,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a handful. It's not. I mean, they pick and choose the races, and then they go to IRAs and the end of the season sort of stuff. The
Right. It's
NCAAs
not
and
like they're
stuff,
having dual or tri meets all over the place all
Right.
the time. They just all converge on the
Yeah,
location.
they do those sometimes, but it's not as much as a basketball team would travel or whatever else. So, but it's back to your question though. The rowing is available in many schools. I think there's about 140 NCAA schools that offer rowing now.
Our statistician over here also,
That's
Chuck.
147 schools.
147
Yeah.
now. So it's even more than the last I checked. So, and it continues to grow. It really was a big boom about the last 20 years when the Title IX thing
Right.
happened. And the reason for that is they realized that the women's rowing program could carry a lot of athletes, could carry about 100 athletes if they wanted it to. And in these NCAA Division I schools, all these programs, the women's programs, offer 20 scholarships, 20 full ride scholarships.
That is outstanding.
And
wait, let's repeat that. Women's scholarships, 20 scholarships. That's per university?
Yep.
Ladies, just giving you a heads up out there. There's some opportunity there, that's for sure.
And as you probably know, they don't have to give everyone a full ride.
Correct.
They can divide those up. So
Sure.
really, you could potentially get everybody on the team some money if they wanted to do that, because they could divide these 20 scholarships up into separate little incentives.
Now, this past season, I'm trying to think the college that ended up winning the championship. I want to say it was not a shore-based. Was it like Indiana or Ohio State? I can't remember.
Well, I think that Washington. I think that they took the NCAAs. University of Washington, I think, but
there was a team, not Kansas, but maybe Indiana or somebody who, and my point of bringing this up is it's not the typical college that you would associate when you think of rowing, which proves your point. What the point you were making is that it's no longer just Ivy League.
Yeah.
Kind of like the flip-flop, no longer are you seeing ice hockey.
Well, University of Virginia does really good. Maybe that's UVA does a really good job for the women's program.
We'll have our statistician look
working
into
on
that
it
during the break.
Working on it, yeah.
But it really was eye-opening,
Sure.
for me to as a matter of fact, I got so excited. I think I posted something on our Facebook page to over the fact that, boy, here's something you wouldn't think of. You would not associate this college with rowing.
Yeah.
And it was just fantastic. And, of course, more and more bits and pieces of really neat information is starting to pop up with rowing as the subject. And of course, like you just said, a lot of opportunity.
Well, what's really cool, too, is you have the Division I schools, obviously, with the 20 scholarships. You also have Division II schools that offer scholarships. Division III, no athletic scholarships. However,
Academics.
if you're a good academic student and you have the intangible rower qualities and they want you, they can finagle it so that they can get you some money. And same with the Ivy Leagues. They don't give any athletic scholarship, but they can do the same thing. They can give you financial aid or other scholarships, other ways.
And from a parent's standpoint, the athlete, I mean, I don't care what fund the college is taking the money from as long as it's not my parents' fund.
And I've had over the years, I've had several kids that were good students, maybe not Ivy material. Grades were good, but they were tremendous rowers. And they got into like Princeton or Harvard because they were really good rowers. And at those schools, the coaches actually get, now this may be a myth, but I've heard,
it's fun to share myths.
the coaches basically get a stack of applications that they want these people, and they hand them to admissions and say, I want those people.
Find a way to make it
happen.
Wow.
Wow.
That's well, and for some of the schools, I mean, rowing, I mean, That's their bread and butter. It's not football or basketball. I mean, rowing. That's where the prestige is. So, tell you what, we're going to take a quick break, pay a few bills, grab a couple of snacks. When we come back, we're going to start getting into a few more details regarding the collegiate aspects and recruiting aspects of rowing. Please tune in. We'll be right back. There are thousands of high school athletes that want to play at the college level. They just don't get noticed. At ViewMySport.com, we get your game out of the shadows and into the college spotlight. It's fast, easy, best of all, it's free. In the time you can text your friends, you can create and send your own athlete profile to as many colleges as you want. Get to the next level. Visit ViewMySport.com today and follow the 3 simple steps. Why wait? Your competition's not. All right, thanks for joining us. We're back here with Chuck Olesker, my co-host, and our special guest today, Coach Ted Riedeburg, the infamous rowing coach from Stanton Riverbank Rowing. Anyway, we've covered some pretty good basics regarding the sport of rowing at the high school level, and now we're entering into some topics with the collegiate aspects and the recruiting, and we're going to start getting into some more detail there. I wanted to ask you, regarding the, and I don't know if popularity is the right word, we'll say the strength of rowing as a sport collegiately. You know, we hear the problems with wrestling, which that just blows me away that wrestling is struggling at the collegiate level to remain a sport. Of course, eliminating it in the Olympics was a huge blow.
Yep.
That'd be like waking up one morning and finding out that, there's no longer going to be college football. I mean, that just blew me away. So here we have a relatively obscure sport, for the masses. It seems, in my opinion, like it's actually growing and gaining momentum and strength as opposed to wrestling. What's going on? Where's that strength and popularity coming from?
Well, I think people are finding out that it's a great sport to do if you want to do something the rest of your life. I mean, it's something that is very low impact on your joints. It's not like running. A lot of runners have to retire after a certain time. Obviously, football players, basketball players, they play through college, maybe professionally, and then they're done. Rowers, there's people rowing into their 90s, and maybe it's not the most intense row of their lives, but they're still doing it. We have a guy in town. He's a member of an adult program that neighbors us, and he's in his 80s, I think, and he goes out there, rows a single.
Whoa. Wow.
So it's something you can do for a long time, and it works your whole body, works your mind. Every muscle group's being used. Obviously, you're getting a lot of cardio out of it too. And I think that people are seeing the benefits of that, for health and well-being through your life.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
But also, it's just a great team sport. It gets people really excited to be a part of this this thing called rowing. And it really has grown a lot. As a matter of fact, because of the scholarship thing, there's a greater percentage of high school athletes that leave and go to college to get scholarships for women's rowing than any other sport.
Yeah, expand on that a little bit, because I know we touched base on that before the break.
Right, because rowing is not as easily accessible by all high school programs, high schools to do. There's a limited number of athletes coming out of high school going into college rowing. So there's actually, percentage-wise, a greater chance of a rower to get a scholarship than, let's say, a volleyball player or a basketball or softball player. And actually, if you look into and talk to college coaches, they are actually probably looking to give away scholarships and finding people on campus, recruiting freshmen that maybe came from a high school that played basketball and never rowed before.
Just because of their athleticism.
They walk on and they say, "Hey, what are you doing?" They said, "Well, I used to play softball, but I wasn't good enough to make the team here in college. Well, why don't you try rowing?" And these people get money.
Never rowed before.
That's right.
That is amazing. But, I mean, it just goes to show, though, if you're a good athlete.
Right.
Now, I'm not saying that every good athlete is going to make a good rower. But the fact is, there's something there
That's half
for
the
you
battle.
to jump into. Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Well,
that's amazing.
And what's the thing about rowing too is that it can be taught. It's a skill that can be taught pretty easily.
The mechanics
you know,
and
if you
technique.
stay relaxed, if your body stays relaxed, and you just listen to the coaching and understand how the mechanics of the stroke work and how to hold the oar, anybody can learn it. And actually, sometimes college coaches prefer kids that come in with very little experience because then they can mold them into exactly
yeah.
what they're looking for. They don't have to change
Right.
any habits or coaching
Undoing
ways
the
that they had
bad.
to do. Obviously, not from my rowers, but they're all good to go.
I was just going to say, I mean, that's a given.
Yeah.
That's a given.
Yeah,
if you
so
do
they-
say so yourself.
So yeah, I mean, it's not like they have to know how to dribble and shoot a basketball or pass a football. It's like they can come in with knowing nothing about it and become an awesome rower. There's actually been some Olympians that went into college as a freshman and hadn't rowed a stroke in their lives, and they learned just in college, and they were just gifted athletes that learned how to row.
Now, and that leads me to another question. How does one know, or let's say if a parent and they're guiding their kid as they're growing and everybody's into the football, the baseball, and all that. I mean, what are the physical traits that you're looking for? I mean, like one particular sport, you need good footwork or balance or pure strength. I mean, how do you know? Is this kid, is my kid, someone who looks like a raw talent that we might want to bring in and make a rower?
That's an interesting question because as a high school rowing coach, and also we have middle schoolers now rowing,
Wow.
You can't judge based on what you see when they walk in the door because they're going to grow, and you don't know how they're going to grow.
Sure.
I've gotten kids come in that are still a little chubby from being a middle school kid and haven't really done anything athletic. To a recruitable athlete by the time they're a senior. Exactly.
Video
Their
games.
thumbs are strong. Yep.
Yeah,
That might be it's a good grip.
That's right. But it's if I had to pick like a perfect rower, a male rower would be about 6'3", 180, 200 pounds, just
Whoa.
lean, strong, long arms.
So you're hanging out around the basketball court.
Exactly. And actually, girl volleyball players, if they're really good, make great rowers.
Wow.
that
There's
makes
all.
sense. Yeah.
That
Because
is amazing.
the point of the stroke is to cover a distance as quickly as you can. So the longer the athlete is, the longer their arms, the longer their reach,
The
the
longer
more
the
flexible
stroke.
they are, the further back they get the oar into the water, the further the boat moves every stroke. And that's the point.
Never even thought
Yeah.
about that. That's one of those mechanical aspects and the physics, if you will.
Right.
Right, but then you look at there's a few programs out there, especially Ivy League schools that still do lightweight programs, and so you have to look at that too. If the kid is, I've had a couple kids go to Navy and row lightweight there.
Now, when you say lightweight, how many rowers are in a boat lightweight? Is it still like 8? But
Yeah,
they're
it's the
just,
same size boats.
uh,
It's just there was a weight limit, and
I'll
it
be darned.
changes. But right now for youth, it's 150 pounds for boys and 130 pounds for girls, and it's not a boat average. It has to be like everyone has to be under that weight.
So they have weigh-ins and the whole
Yep.
shebang. Wow.
Yeah, one of the boats that medaled for me this past weekend was a lightweight men's 4. They had silver, and everyone was like 148, so they were right on the edge.
Boy, so it's not just wrestlers trying to make weight,
Right,
You see the rowers, pulling the wrestling mat over them to lose those extra few pounds before
Exactly.
weigh-in. That is something I never at all even thought about. Had
Yep.
no idea.
And there's
Very
only one.
interesting.
There's only one or the other. There's either open weight or lightweight, and so it's a lot fewer of that sort of thing going on. A lot less of that worrying about the weight going on. I would personally not want anybody to try to suck weight to make lightweight.
Just to
if they're
be a-
if they're there, that's great. If not,
Right.
keep growing, eat food, get bigger muscles.
Yeah, bigger muscles, then come up to the open weight.
That's
you know?
right.
Very nice, very nice. Now, I want to ask you, as far as, and you've already answered it, as far as what the allure of rowing as a sport is, which again, for the parents out there that are watching this, that are kind of gauging, gee, where I don't want my kid to play football because I just concussions or whatever, or
Yeah,
maybe he's not
broken
big
knees.
enough, or all of these other sports. It is, and a lot of people think, well, soccer, well, no, there's a high skill level there. Golf, enough said. I'm not saying that you don't have to have talent, but it is a fantastic opportunity, a great sport to take up. And maybe if you're wanting to compete in an athletic, event, this would be a great alternative to I mean, there's a lot of parents out there who wish their kids could be an athlete, but, gee, but my kid can't shoot, or my kid can't, tackle, or,
Bring 'em to
my
me.
kid's too small. I mean, this is a great alternative, and nobody talks about that.
Right.
You never hear that mentioned. And it's no longer, well, my school doesn't have a program, because now you've got programs like Coach Riedeburg here with the Stanton Riverbank Rowing Club, and you guys encompass, how many high schools do you have participating?
Well, I mean,
Or students from different high schools. How many high schools do you figure represented?
right now we probably have about 5 different high schools representing, from mostly Stanton kids, I'd say, is about half the team. But there's Paxson, Bishop Kenny, there's also homeschooled kids on the team.
I was just going to ask you that, for those individuals. And now these schools that don't have their own team per se, because of your organization, they're able to compete at the high school level. They're able to compete and gain scholarships and whatnot.
Right.
That is, and they are flying the flag of Stanton Riverbank Rowing Club, not my high school.
That's
or
right.
whatever the case may be. That's outstanding. Now, are there a lot of Stanton Riverbank rowing type of organizations out there, where they give that same opportunity?
They actually had some statistics came out after this last state championship regatta from our president of the FSRA, and he was pointing out that there were about just as many high school programs as there were club programs, and for a while the scholastic teams, all the high school teams, were sort of complaining, I guess, about the youth programs, the club teams having an advantage because they could pull from many different high schools.
Sure.
Well, I've been on both sides of the coin now, and I can tell you that it is way harder to get kids to row for a club than it was for me to get kids to row at bowls, because when I was there, that was the school team, and I grew it from, basically nothing into what it is now.
Right.
And that was
quite
just
a
by
tremendous
building
program.
excitement. I mean, it was a joke going around when I was there that I was the king of the misfit toys, because everybody that couldn't do anything else would come to me, and then I'd make them into athletes, which is great. I love it.
Hey,
bring it. I love doing
that's
that.
a success story to me. I
Absolutely.
mean, that's outstanding.
But now, I mean, it's very challenging to get people to come out and look, because we're not on a campus like at Bowls. The boathouse is there.
Right.
Sure, they're already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just get kids to check it out. That's a challenge. But yeah, in Florida, there's about equal amount of club teams as there are these scholastic teams, and there was no advantage when they showed the medal counts for everything and the point values that everyone got. It was basically the same
Across the board. Well, and it's funny you bring that point up, and again, with the obscurity of rowing, but you hear a lot about that with tennis. And the tennis teams are just dying out at the high school level because why? They're all over in the USTA. They figure that's where you have to compete.
Yeah.
You're hearing about volleyball more and more with volleyball, where they want to play the hot traveling club teams, and they don't want to necessarily get involved. We're probably going to have a show dedicated to nothing but that topic, because it's ruining high school sports. But that particular level, what you're doing is you're assisting. You're giving a high school opportunity to high schools that have no program. So so you're the more of the savior than somebody ruining high school rowing.
Well, and I think that's part of the challenge, because just for example, there was a middle school nearby that I talked to the athletic director a couple times about me coming in there and just bringing a boat, or showing,
give them an
rowing
experience,
machines, and showing the kids what the sport's all about. And they have their own sport programs there, and so they were saying no, because I think they didn't want me to start taking kids from their school and thinning down their pool for athletes. But to me, that seems like a silly thing, because these kids are all going to play football and stuff anyway.
Sure,
They're not.
sure.
This is not going to take away from that. But also, these kids that can't make the football team a chance to do something,
right?
Something that can get them a scholarship.
Sure.
Where these kids would probably this whole school, if the football players probably wouldn't get a scholarship. if they kept through playing football. You know,
well, your next Olympic rower could perhaps come from that program. You just it's about providing opportunities.
Yep.
And that's really and we talk about how I'm a huge fan of the high school sports system. Love high school sports. I'm very much a purist though, and I'm all about competition. I'm all about pitting the kids against the kids and letting them experience that thrill of competition. Whether you're smashing through a linebacker or whether you're pulling on the oars. Competing's competing.
That's
Once
right.
you get a taste of it, for the kids that you shut down because it's not your big three sport, I think is a criminal act, in my opinion. I'm very much against that. So kudos to you, Coach, for the job you're doing because, I think it's fantastic. So tell you what, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to recognize our ViewMySport.com Athlete of the Week, and we're going to get into some nitty-gritty recruiting aspects on the rowing side with our special guest here, Coach Ted Riedeburg from the Stanton Riverbank Rowing Club. We'll be right back.
Through the strength of our management team, our geographic presence, and our world-class value-added services, the Marsh & McLennan Agency provides public and privately held companies with risk management and employee benefit insight that helps enable you to flourish in this ever-changing and competitive market. Let Marsh & McLennan Agency help you identify, plan for, and respond to critical business issues and risks. For more information, call Marsh & McLennan Agency today at 888-292-9806.
All right, thanks for joining us. We're getting into some pretty good information here with Coach Ted Riedeburg. We have enjoyed the conversation that we've had up to this point. Hopefully the information that we've been sharing, you parents and high school rowers out there, you're finding valuable, and that's the whole point of what we're trying to do. Before we continue, we do want to recognize our ViewMySport.com Athlete of the Week. Chuck, take it away.
Thank you. Elijah McInnes from Morgan Park High School in Chicago is a baseball player, pitcher, and third baseman, class of 2014. He is ViewMySport.com's Athlete of the Week. Congratulations.
Hey, congratulations, Elijah. Thanks for using ViewMySport.com. We hope that all of our tools and resources are, you're finding helpful during your recruiting process, and anything that we can do, obviously, let us know. For any of you out there that want to see more on Elijah, you can go to the homepage at www.viewmysport.com, and you'll see the Athlete of the Week segment. Click on it, and you'll be taken right to his profile to check out his highlight video and information such as that. So good job, Elijah. Thank you. All right, now we want to get into some of the dark, deep, secretive areas as far as the rowing goes, what we're all about, which is, we get into the recruiting aspects. Now, we've talked a little bit about, the type of athlete that traditionally you're looking for. I'm a high school rower. I'm doing pretty well, but I go to you and I say, Coach Riedeburg, I want to row at the collegiate level. What do I need to focus on other than my grades, other than my community service? But as a rower, what do I need to really be focusing on to get better at in order for me to be able to be considered a prospect at the collegiate level?
Well, first and foremost, there is a benchmark test that all coaches do with the athletes. It's called the 2,000-meter erg test, and the erg is the indoor rowing machine. It's
the 2,000-meter erg test, indoor on the rowing machine.
That's right.
Okay. All right. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
And there's basically a range of time that they look at to be successful. For girls, it's 7 minutes and 15 seconds to 7 minutes and 45 seconds is where they would strongly consider.
Write that down.
A varsity-type athlete. Obviously, the bigger the girl, the lower that score should be because they're pulling their weight.
Sure.
If you have a girl that's 170 pounds and she's pulling a 745, but I have another girl that's 150 pounds and she's pulling a 720, I want the girl that's 150 pulling a 720 in my boat because there's less weight being moved.
Less drag.
Right.
And for boys, you just drop a minute on that. Basically, it'd be 7:15 or 6:15 to 6:45. So that's number one. You want a good erg test. You know, they look at the 2,000 meter test the most. They also consider 6,000 meter tests. That's more of a test of endurance. Typically,
I would think so.
those are done in the fall season. Yeah, so that's number one. Number two is they would probably want to request the coach to film them. A lot of collegiate coaches will look at film of them just on the rowing machine and say that they'll know enough just by looking at that.
They can see their technique and whatnot.
Others would require maybe a minute video of them rowing on the water, either in a sculling boat or a sweep boat. Doesn't matter. And then they may ask me for a recommendation letter. I try to leave it, a lot of it, to their doing, because it is their responsibility to take care of their collegiate experience.
And they, meaning not just
kids.
the athlete and the kid, but their parents as
That's
well.
right. Yeah, right.
Put it back on the homestead. Okay,
Right. If
gotcha.
they ask, I'm not going to go out of my way to say, hey, you need to do this, you need to do this. You know, I want them to, I basically give them the information, and then they know what they need to do. And if they want to come to me for help, they can.
Certainly.
And then recommendations, you know, if they want to talk to me about where they think, you know, they might fit, and give me a list of schools that they are interested in. I mean, bottom line, and you know this as far as looking at a college, the number one thing they need to be thinking about is their education.
Certainly.
Absolutely.
And making sure that that school has the programs that they want to focus on in school, not that they have a good rowing program.
Right.
Because like we said earlier, there's rowing programs at all levels, from Division I all the way down to schools that just have club teams where the kids are funding it themselves. You know, they can row almost anywhere. You know, it just depends on, you know, the atmosphere of the school they like, you know, where it is in the country, if they have the major they want.
Sure.
And then look at the rowing after that. You know, that's number one. But yeah, the 2K score, I think, is probably the number one. If someone's going to put something on your website,
Right.
they want to put their 2K score and also maybe a video.
Gotcha. And of course, on viewmysport.com, we have the profile set up, and you can select, you know, the type of position that you're rowing in, and we give you the ability to put your videos in there. So certainly, you know, that's something that we can handle.
Yeah, Ted, I wanted to ask you a question.
Sure.
According to the statistics that we see, the most recent stuff from scholarshipstats.com, there are about 10,000 participants at all levels of the college in rowing programs. About 3,000 of them are men, and we touched on this earlier, that the women are the ones that get the scholarship. Well, there's 75 teams, 75 colleges that have men's teams, but if the men aren't getting any sort of scholarship, other than the Division III and NIA, where they'd have some academic information, what's the impetus for boys in high school programs to go on to college? Is it just the thrill of keeping the experience? And we kind of touched on, it's something that you can do well into your senior years. So
for most kids, it's just they love it,
and
they want to keep doing it.
Good.
There are some scholarships available for men.
Are there?
It's not zero.
Okay.
It's just not as much.
Okay.
Where a school may have 20 for the girls, there might be 5 for the boys.
Okay.
And they can divide that up. I think even JU has some scholarships for boys.
Gotcha.
In rowing.
Traditionally, do you see more partials as opposed to full rides, or is it?
I guess it depends on how badly they want them. I'd say for the boys, it's mostly partial scholarships. Girls, I see a lot of full rides. As a matter of fact, one of our girls that's a senior this year got a full ride to Nova.
Oh, outstanding. Outstanding.
Through the rowing program. So.
Okay.
That's great. Well, and again, that's one of those things that we try to stress. And everybody thinks scholarship. Yes, you can get a scholarship, but you still might be coming out of pocket, with $50,000, for your own. So you really have to do your homework and your research, like Coach said. Understand what exactly the schools are offering. Because scholarship is a very broad, defined word. $5,000 or $50,000, and anywhere in between. So you better try to find out what's where. And on top of that, if you know that going into it that it's traditionally not going to be full ride time, then you better early start looking at other financial aid packages, other monies that are out there for other things, not just scholastics, but things that you might be doing in your community service. And at viewmysport.com, in our resources, we have a link to a great site that will help you look for other types of monies that you may qualify for. Again, the combination of money could end up giving you ultimately a full ride.
Yep.
So please do, be aware of that and get into that segment very early. Even if you're not even thinking about scholarships, you got to do it early so you're prepared when it does come about.
Exactly.
Now, we talk about, recruiting in the process and on. You've already touched base on this. I mean, and every coach is different in every sport as far as how they handle the recruiting. You've already said you pretty much put the responsibility in the parents' corner and the athletes' corner. You're there to support. You're there to give the information. You're there to make them the best rower and student and everything else that you can. But ultimately, the process, I mean, what do you see, and for any parents that are out there, I mean, what do you feel is the parent's role as, when it comes to the recruiting process? It's okay. It's okay. Speak your mind.
Okay. Well, I think the parents can get too involved.
Too involved in the recruiting aspect.
I think they can get too involved. I think
define that.
Well, I think that they want what's best for their kid. Mm-hmm. And I've seen I've been doing this for 13, 14 years now, and especially over the last few years, I've seen parents going a little overboard with helping and wanting the best for their kid.
Examples of helping.
Getting a little too, I don't know, just let the coaches do their job, let the kids figure out what they want to do, and then be there to support their kid.
Right.
Support their kid. Yeah, they might need some help getting in touch with a coach or knowing all the rules and things like that. But ultimately, I think it's the kid's responsibility because they're going to college.
Sure.
Right.
I'm not going to be there anymore. Their parents aren't going to be there, I think. Some parents
hope
move
not.
with their kid, But they need to be responsible for themselves and what they're doing next. Mm-hmm. And I think the more that you let them take charge of that and take ownership of that process, I think the more they're going to appreciate it when it's time to go.
Sure. Well, and I think just to kind of take that a step further as far as the parents go, perhaps maybe help them find the tools or maybe, direct them to the correct sites. I'm going to say it. I'm going to do the plug. ViewMySport.com being one of those.
An excellent site.
Thank you.
Obviously. Well, we have the resources out there where we can make the parents' job much easier by them guiding their child to the site. All of the resources are there. Now, the parent, obviously, and I know I would want to educate myself so I knew what they should be doing. Am I going to do it for them? Not a bit. What my intention is to make sure that they're not going with all this energy down the wrong direction. I mean, obviously, I want them to do what's right, but they're going to make the phone calls to the coaches. They're going to be the ones to set up their profile on the website. They're going to be the ones to send it. I mean, good grief, it's so easy, especially when you use View My Sport. But I want them on the telephone making those follow-up phone calls.
Yeah.
And there will be a time when the coach needs to talk to the parent. That's that side of the business. But the pure part of the recruiting process, definitely, I agree with you. I think it should be the kid. The coach is there for support to provide, the information, maybe the videos and things like that. And the parents are the cheerleader. And you're right. I think that just the way they are with coaches when it comes to playing time and where I think my child should be in your program and on your team, they can also be overbearing in the recruiting to a fault, to the point where all of a sudden college coaches don't even want to. Oh God, it's another email from that. So they can be too overbearing. So it's good, and I just wanted to hear it from the coach's perspective. Yeah. So we're all on the right path.
Absolutely.
No, do you? We were talking to a swim coach the other day. And he talked about how he kind of handles his recruiting process, and that he takes at a certain time of the year, he takes the sophomores and juniors and he sits them down and say, here's the recruiting process. Do you set time aside specifically for recruiting, or is it on a as needed basis?
Case by case.
I have done meetings in the past, recruiting meetings, talking about getting ready to be recruited to college. I actually had Roger in a couple of those meetings. He came in and talked to the kids about what to expect and how to use his site and things like that. So yes, I do stuff like that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think it's like anything. You're going to have the parents that are making notes, and they'll take all the help they can get, and then you've got the ones that think they know it all.
Right.
And it's amazing the results flip-flop. You know, the ones that think they know it all end up, you know, having the bigger problems.
That's right.
It's good, though, that from a coaching perspective, that you do expose them to the tools, be it VMS or be it, you know, going to the NCAA.org site, you know, to look at eligibility rules or whatever the case may be. I know some coaches, it's like, you're totally on your own. I'm here to coach and win, you know.
Yeah.
And then there are some that you know, micromanage that process, and it's, you know, again, to the point where it's destructive.
Yep.
So there is, I think, a happy medium. Give them the tools, set them free, and then you're there to support, you know. I think that seems to be a pretty good recipe for success.
Plus, if something goes majorly wrong, they can't blame me for
That's,
it.
that's right.
Come on now. Buck
That's
up
right.
a little bit. Buck up. No. Well, you know, that's the reality of it. And I don't think there's a coach out there that would disagree that, hey, you know, especially, I mean, we're not talking about a 10-man roster. How many kids do you have participating out there?
Right now, we have about 45.
45. And I mean, when you get 45 kids, I mean, it's like handling football, only it's you.
Yep.
I mean, and that's a lot of kids. And I feel for you. I feel for you. That's for certain. I want to, you know, you talked about this already a little bit, you know, Title IX and opportunities for the boys versus the girls. And for those of you that don't know Title IX, go look it up and you'll see where, you know, all started. But essentially what it's done is it's opened up more scholarship monies for the women at the collegiate level in sports. And there are, and it's a requirement. You have to spend this much money. It's Brewster's Millions. Here's the millions. By God, you've got to spend it. And of course, if certain monies aren't spent on the women's side, then the men's side suffer. I mean, it's really, and it's about equality and making sure that the football program doesn't get everything, as an example. So since Title IX, you know, you've seen a gaining popularity, obviously. But it has brought in tremendous opportunity. I know we've already spoken about that a little bit, but I mean, let's say in the last 5 years, what kind of increase have you? I mean, have they just been flooding now to the rowers?
Well, I mean, I think the boom happened about 20 years ago when that first happened. Really,
Sure.
there was a 10-year span where it just program after program got started in college for especially for the women's side. It's still growing, and but I'd say it's kind of leveling off a little bit more nowadays. But there's still that opportunity there for scholarships. I mean, there's tons out there. Like you said, they have to spend the money.
Got to go for it.
They're going to get 20 scholarships, 20 full ride scholarships. They have to give them out, you know, somehow. So there you go.
Outstanding,
Yeah.
outstanding. So all of you out there that are considering having kids, really put a plug in for the girls. We need more girls.
Yeah.
Well, you know, we talk about that, and we talk about the opportunities. Well, and the fact is, it is what it is. You know, and if you can take advantage of that, I mean, I think that's something that I know if I had a daughter, I can assure you, I'm going to be directing her towards the rowing aspect. And it's not just because of the opportunity for, you know, getting into college, you know, without writing a check, but because of that competition. It's just another thing to expose them to.
Right.
And if it takes and they love it and they can take it to college, I mean, hot dog. That's fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, and you look at the success that the USA has had on the Olympic and World
Exactly.
Championship level in the women's 8.
Oh, it's been
They've
fantastic.
won gold in, I think, 7 straight Olympics and World Championships.
Sure.
And that just shows you the depth of that side of the program.
Right.
Why there are so many collegiate rowers, and they have this pool to choose from.
Right.
You know, that's why they're so successful, and the coaching is great too on that side. The guy they've had over there for the last 7-8 years is awesome. So, and it shows.
Yeah,
Good.
well, and hopefully it'll continue. I want to ask you one last thing before we go to break. Now, we again, we talk about the recruiting, and obviously we're here to help. The other sports seem to gain success by the athletes, jumping into the process relatively early. Don't wait until it's time, or wait until you're the superstar. And I'm curious to know, I mean, with rowing, is it pretty much the same theory? I mean, do you encourage the kids or parents to start blazing a trail, maybe start dialogue with some of these college coaches, and just to get on their radar? I mean, is that a positive for the rowers?
Absolutely. I think the sooner they can get going on stuff like this, the better.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say certainly by the time you're a freshman in high school, you should be having something going on viewmysport.com.
Okay.
You need to have something out there so coaches can start looking you up.
Sure.
And then you just have to keep it updated. You can't just put your picture on there as a ninth grader and that you row for Stanton Riverbank.
It's like having a baseball card.
Forget about it.
Yeah.
You need to keep updating it every several months. Just keep updating your 2K times, whatever. Your whatever kind of stuff you can put on the site, like their extracurricular activities and stuff like that. Just keep updating it so they can keep an eye on you, because they really can't contact you until after your junior year. So they can look at these things and get an idea who they want to contact,
who they're going to follow,
and they can have this list, and then there you are, you're on their list.
Right, and that to bring up a final point before our break, and you just nailed it down. The fact is, a coach may not be able to contact you as a recruiting prospect, but the fact is, you can reach out and establish communication with the coaches. Coach Riedeburg refers to the viewmysport.com profile. You can set up your profile as a freshman. You can send this profile out to these coaches. You can keep them up to date. You may not get a response, but believe me, if you're sending them the profile with the videos and then you're putting your erg times on there, these are all great ways to start and get on that radar. And what will happen, once you can be contacted, you're already on their list.
Yep.
In the meantime, you may get camp information. You may get media guides or scholastic information from the school. You'll be on mailing list for certain. But it's so good to hear you say that, because, again, it is a successful recipe for other athletes with other sports. Rowing is no different. Do it often, do it early, and do it right. And on that note, we're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Thanks again for joining us here at the Breakdown. Are you a high school athlete, parent of a high school athlete, maybe a high school coach or a college coach looking for a high school athlete, or just a fan of high school and college sports? Then you need the ViewRecruit mobile recruiting app. It's got everything. Athletes can create profiles, including their highlight videos. They can use the Recruit Network to send their profiles directly to college coaches. If a coach likes your profile, great. You get a notice directly on your mobile device and receive an email to boot. College coaches can receive updates directly on their devices and use the search function to find the talent that fits their program. Whether you're an athlete or a college coach, it's like having your very own recruiting department right at your fingertips. Download the ViewRecruit app now on iTunes for your iPhone, iPad, or iPod Touch. Be part of the #1 high school athletics and college coaching network. Get it today, the ViewRecruit mobile recruiting app. All right, thanks for joining us here on The Breakdown. I'm here with Chuck Olesker, our great co-host and engineer. Joining us today is Coach Ted Riedeburg from the Stanton Riverbank Rowing Club. and he has been sharing some great information, some enlightening information. You know, for those of you out there that think you're in the know as far as rowing goes, I mean, we're hearing it from the horse's mouth. I mean, we're getting, not only has Coach Riedeburg rowed, but he's been involved from a recruiting perspective. He has coached, you know, championship teams year after year after year. What'd you say, 14 years you've been doing this. And he's involved in a very high-profile organization now. So take the information that we're sharing and use it. Understand it, make notes. Understand, too, after the show, it doesn't stop there. Anything that you need, if you have questions, whatever the case may be, by all means, send over your questions to us through the website. Go to the homepage and click on Contact Us and send your questions, your situation, whatever it is. We will be there to help. That's the bottom line. We are here to help rowers and high school athletes and the parents and the coaches all over the world. So whatever it is that you need, please let us know any day, anytime. So, all right, now we've talked about some of the rowing basics, you know, as a sport and collegiately and in the high school level, from a coaching perspective, from a parent's perspective, from the athlete's perspective. I think we've pretty much covered it all, in pretty good detail, I think, to where it'll be helpful to our audience. Now, something that we like to get into, not just with rowing, but all aspects of sport in the high school level, and especially if you're looking to be recruited at the collegiate level, and that is community service. You will hear me beat that horse to death forever for a couple of reasons. A, it's a great thing to be involved in. You should be doing this, especially if you're in high school. Don't do it just to fulfill a requirement, to get your hours because it's expected. Not only are you going to be fulfilled by going out into your community and helping others, you make some fantastic contacts. These contacts may not mean much to you today, but they will mean a lot when it comes time to go to college and when you graduate from college. We hear kids that had been involved with certain organizations and programs and companies while they're in high school, graduate from college, and then end up returning back to those companies and going to work for them. So if you don't think that there's a practical application of community service work, believe me, there is tremendous amounts. Now, beyond that, the colleges do look at community service heavily, just like all the other sports. They want to look at grades. They want to look at your athletic talent. They want to see what type of person you are and what you're doing out in the community. With so many athletes, it very often comes down to being a tiebreaker situation. Well, I've got a great kid who can row his tail off. They've all got, you know, great grades. I've only got 2 spots, but I've got 10 kids I'm looking at. Let's take a look at what they're doing in the community. What separates them as individuals from everybody else? How do they stand out? So believe me, the community service work is so important. Now, I bring this up because Coach Riedeburg happens to be extremely heavily involved in the outside programs, the Susan Komen Breast Cancer Foundation. There's, several different events that you've had. I know I myself got involved that one year as a sponsor, and it wasn't just a, hey, let's go row around and make a few bucks per lap. I mean, it looked like a bloody fair going on. I mean, it was really big time, and you've always been very heavily involved. You know, tell us a little bit about that and what kind of drove you there, and you know, some of your recommendations when it comes to community service.
Sure. Well, basically, several years ago, I lost my mother to breast cancer, so I wanted to do something in her memory.
Nice.
And I started Row for the Cure in Jacksonville. And at the time, I didn't know there were any other Row for the Cures in the country, but it turned out there actually were a couple other ones that had started. And there was actually a woman that started this whole Row for the Cure thing that kind of jumped on her bandwagon after that. And what I did was I did it for a few reasons. Number one, I wanted the kids to have more awareness about what it was to have breast cancer and how to handle that sort of situation, but also to give them opportunities to do some community service, get that awareness out into the community as well. and then do something that makes them feel proud, of helping out a cause like that. And so it grew from just an event that we had at Bowles one year into a pretty big thing where the Olympic women's 8 rode at our event.
Oh, wow.
That was the event that I was at, and that was big time. I mean, that was an outstanding event.
Yeah, and I guess the lesson there to all the kids that there is always something out there that you can do to help the community. And if you put your mind to it, you can make big things happen. And it may be just a volunteer basis thing. It might be even more than that, but anything you can do to impact the community in a positive way, you should try to do, because it's going to make your resume look better. It's going to make you look like more of a team player and not selfish with your time, that you want to go out there and do all kinds of good stuff with your team, with the rowing program, with the school, and maybe even businesses in the area.
And it's not like you have to go with your team. It can be individual communities. I mean, you can go out and find your own and do different things as an individual, not just with the team.
Yeah.
Well, that's, and again, we can't stress it enough how important it is for yourself and again, for the individuals that you're having an impact on their lives. And I can tell you firsthand experience, some of these organizations and the kids or the people or the individuals whose lives they're impacting, if you don't think that you're, few hours here and few hours there over the course of the years have an impact, you're highly mistaken.
Right.
You need to do a little bit more research and find out how your time is impacting. Even the smallest bit can have such a great impact. So can't say enough about that. Now, one thing that I want to end this on, and certainly, last but not least, are grades. We preach about the scholastics, the academics, the testing and things like that, how it can make or break. I mean, you can be an excellent athlete, but if you don't have the grades, you're not really going to go anywhere. You're not going to take advantage at the next level. What's your lesson out there? What's your tips, if you will, regarding the grade aspects?
Well, at our team, we definitely make that a priority. If the kids are struggling in school, then they need to take some time away, maybe not come to a practice a week to work on their studies, because that's number one. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere with bad grades.
Sure.
Okay? And so we actually set up study halls sometimes. If kids are struggling and they want to work on their studies during practice, maybe we have half the time, an hour of practice, maybe we set up a study hall for those kids.
Do you bring tutors in or
we actually,
experts, if you will, to help out? Or
we actually offer every year. We have from our Stanton kids, we have a group of them kind of take charge, a leadership role in setting up a tutor program for some of the younger kids on the team.
Outstanding.
Community involvement.
So if they're these kids are struggling in these classes, they actually meet with them on off days of practice at Stanton and help them with their schoolwork.
Good.
That is fantastic. And again, we can't say enough about that. And I like the fact that you put that emphasis out there in the state. Maybe take a break one practice. We talk about this all the time, where the parents will spend thousands of dollars for the kids to become better athletes, to be stronger, faster, nutrition, and granted, all very important, but they won't spend a penny on proactive tutoring to better their study skills, their habits. Don't wait until they're dragging a 1.9 or a 2.1 and think, oh gosh, I still need 2 points to get the bare minimum to qualify at Division I. You better be on it early. There's nothing wrong with becoming a better student. And that's where the tutoring comes in, whether it's something that you can get through guidance at the school or whether you go to some of these professional, the Huntington schools or whatever the case may be. Parents, put it in your curriculum to work with your kids. Don't just take them to the gym. Don't just take them to the special camps. Get them in some mind exercises as well, because it can make the difference. Matter of fact, it can turn a partial to a full ride scholarship. It can make the difference between no scholarship at all. It can make the difference between not even getting into the college. So if you don't think that that's important, think again.
And I'll tell you this much, Roger, too, is more often than not, the trouble with grades has mostly to do with time management. You know, I used to counsel some kids, and that was the #1 problem. Every time I said, well, what do you do? Tell me about your day. What are you doing? You know, and, you know.
Interesting.
And I said, and also about attention. Like, how are you, when you're studying, what are you doing? Are you watching TV while you're studying?
Texting.
Are you
video games?
My biggest joke was you have the computer going, you have instant messenger on the computer, you have Facebook on the computer,
Yep.
you have your homework on the computer, and you have your phone here, and you're texting your friends, you're instant messaging, you're watching the Facebook status of your friends, you're doing this, you're doing that, and then you read a sentence or two of your book, and then you go back to all those things. How can you possibly retain any information in your brain if you've got it divided 5 ways and 4 of them you're more interested in than your homework? But you have to shut it all down.
That's
Right.
multitasking. That's what I used to hear.
No.
Yeah.
Dad, I'm multitasking.
You need to shut it down. Parents, if I'm going to tell you one thing, when they're studying, you need to shut it down. They just need to be sitting at a desk like we used to do when we were kids.
Yep.
No distractions, because it's becoming a major problem.
Oh, sure it is. Sure, and it's really sort of funny how all of these tools, you know, that we have, the computers and whatnot, all of these tools that are supposed to make us smarter and learn, you know, more easily are actually becoming our undoing. But that's for another show. We'll get into that.
I'll
by
come to that
gosh.
show too.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Good.
Well, I tell you, this has been a fantastic show. We've had a great time. The time has flown by. We again hope that all of you out there have gained some little nugget of knowledge. Again, our goal is to get whatever information we can out there that we feel is important. If we've missed something, let us know. If there's, again, questions that you have, let us know. We certainly won't try to answer it, but Ted will. Coach Riedeburg. He's the guy when it comes to the rowing aspects. We'll defer everything to him. And we'll use his excuse. That way, if it gets screwed up, we can blame him.
That's right.
Well, again, my name is Roger Tillis. I'm the host here at the Breakdown with Chuck Olesker. Again, thank you so much, Coach Riedeburg, for being here
Thank
today.
you, Ted.
We have had a great time. And to all of you out there, just remember, go to www.viewmysport.com. Check out all the information. We hope that you'll find it useful. Until next time, enjoy the ride. See you next week.